Okay, so we have the home page done. Now we want to move on to the About, which is completely empty right now. If I click on it, it's just a blank page. So what I'll do is copy what we have in the index, because we're going to be reusing some of this stuff like the nav bar and the footer, and also some of the stuff in the head. So I'm just going to copy it all. I'm going to just Control A to select it all and then copy it, Control C, and let's go into About HTML and paste it in. And start at the top here. Now, if you want to leave the same meta tags, description, keywords, you can do that. We don't need this link to the font awesome because we're not using any icons on this page. So we can completely get rid of that. We want to keep the reference to our style CSS because that's where all of our custom styling goes. For the title, I'm going to change the welcome to About. And then we have our header, which initially has the nav bar and the showcase, but we're not going to be using the showcase. So let's get rid of this whole div with the ID of showcase and everything in it. So now the header only has the nav. And we want to move the current class off of the home link because we want that to go onto the About. Okay, whatever the current page is what we want highlighted. And then we can get rid of everything else up to the footer. We just want to keep the footer. So let's save that, and now if we click on About, we just have our header and footer. So this is basically like the start for any page that we create on this website. And when you start to get into, like, let's say PHP or some JavaScript frameworks, stuff like that, you don't have to reuse your HTML like this. You'll be able to like import files and stuff, but that's later on. That's after you learn HTML and CSS. So let's go ahead and create this. Where is it? Right here. We have basically two sections on the About page. This is going to be the About Info section. This is going to be the Testimonials section. So right under header, I'm going to put in a section tag, and I'm going to give it an ID of About-Info. And inside here, we want a container, because we want all the content to be contained, and we'll have info left and info right. So info left class, and under that let's do info right class. So info left is going to have a heading, an H1, and we're going to do About Hotel BT, and I'm going to wrap the text About in the text primary class inside of a span, because I wanted to have that tan color. So let's say class text primary, and we want that span to just wrap around the About word like that. And then underneath the H1, let's put a paragraph, and let's say lorem. We'll do lorem 30. And then let's do one more paragraph, and let's do lorem 20, like that. So that's the left side. Now on the right, we're just going to have an image. So let's put in an image tag, and the source is going to be / because we're looking in the current directory, and then we want to go into the image directory, and we actually want photo2.jpg. And for the alt, I'll just put in the word hotel. So let's save that, see what we get. So we have the heading, we have the paragraph. This is info left, and then info right. We just have the image in here, which is the full size image. As you can see, you can scroll way over. It's actually a really large image. So let's add our CSS to get this looking better. Okay, so we'll go to our style sheet, and let's go all the way down. So put in a comment. Actually, you know what? Let's leave the footer at the bottom. I like to keep the styling of the footer at the bottom. But let's put a comment here and say About Info. We have our ID About-Info, and let's see, for About Info. Actually, you know what? I don't think we have any specific style for that, just that particular div. What I do want to do is I want to add a BG class, one of our utilities. I want to use BG Lite. So in addition to the ID of About Info, let's add a class of BG light and save. And as you can see, it's very faint, but it is gray. It's not white. Okay, and then for the info right, let's style that. So about info, and then there's a class of info right, and we want to float to the right, and we want to set the width to half, 50%. And I'm just going to set a min height of 100%. And let's see, for the image, okay, this image is inline. It's not a background image, and by default it'll break out of its container. So usually with images you want to set the width to 100%, because what it does is it contains it 100% of its container, which in this case is info right. So I'm going to copy this right here. Oops. I want to copy that, and we want to say image. We want to target the img tag, and then we want to set the width of the image. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do 70%. So we'll say width 70%, and we also want to display it as a block. And if you remember back in the section where we talked about display block, display inline, I showed you an example of an image, and I wanted to align it in the middle, but we couldn't do margin auto on the image because an image by default is displayed inline. So that's why I'm going to display this as block, because I want to set the margin to auto. All right, let's save that. Good. Now we want to take this, which is in info left, and we want to float it to the left. So let's go right here. We'll say about dash info, class info dash left, and float to the left. We'll set the width to 50% and the min height to 100%, and save. And there we go. So now we have that floated to the left. Now we need some spacing here, right? Because it's right up against the header, it's right up against the footer. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll add a utility class for padding and sometimes for margin. So I'm going to go to my utilities up here, utility classes that we've been creating, and let's create one for padding. So we'll say padding. We'll just say padding, and let's do some PY padding. And what I mean by PY, I want to make this a class. What I mean by PY is the y-axis, so padding for the top and bottom. And let's do PY1, and we'll make that padding on the top and bottom 10 pixels. Okay, we could even, since this is only going to be one property, we could go like that and copy it down, and then we'll do PY2. Even if we're not using them right now, we could have them available for the future if we were going to add more pages. So let's say 20 pixels, 30 pixels. Okay, so we have these different padding classes now, and I'm going to save it, and I'm going to go and add one to the about info. Okay, so right here, about info, in addition to BG light, let's do padding Y dash 3, which should be 30 pixels on the top and bottom. Let's save, and there we go. So now we have some spacing here, and then whenever we have a section where we want to add some padding to the top and bottom, we can simply put in one of these utility classes. So this stuff is it's not mandatory. I mean, we could put padding on the about info, but I think it's much cleaner to do it this way, because you have these classes that are available to you whenever you want, as opposed to just having, you know, senseless padding and background colors for every single element. You just have these classes you can add, kind of like a framework. Okay, so let's move on here. What else did I want to do? I think that's, we want to make the image circle. Okay, or we want to add a radius to the image. So to do that, we just need to go back to our CSS and go down to where we have our image, which is, we've written quite a bit of CSS already. So right here, this img tag, we just want to add a border radius to this. So we'll say border dash radius, and we're going to set it to 50% and save, and now you'll see that it's a circular image. Now, the last thing I want to do is make this heading bigger, because right now I have it as an H1, which is the biggest heading, and I still want the text bigger. So I'm going to add a class to it, and I'm going to call this L-heading. So we'll do large heading. And we'll use this as a utility because we can use it on other headings as well. So let's go up here, and let's see, we'll go right under the clear. Yeah, we'll go right here and say .L-heading, and I'm just going to set the font size to, let's do 40 pixels and save, and there we go. So now the text is bigger. So let's move on to the next section, which is going to be the testimonials. And since we have the we have the floats here, we have to clear them. So we're going to add a class of clear, which we already have in our CSS, and then we'll add our section with the ID of testimonials. And I'm also going to add a class here of py3 because I want to add padding here as well. Then we want our container. So you can see the pattern here. It's just sections stacked on top of each other, and then we have our container to move the content in the middle. If we want some kind of background image or something, we put it on the section, which I'm actually going to do. So inside the testimonials, let's see, we're going to have a heading. Let's do an H2, but I'm also going to give this a class of L-heading because I want it to be large, and we'll say what our guests say. Okay, so there's our H2. Let's add a testimonial. So basically, we're going to have two testimonials here, and we're going to give them a class of testimonial, and also BG primary because we want them to have this tan background. So let's do a class of testimonial, and inside the testimonial we're going to have the image of the person. So this is going to go to /image, and then let's pick person1.jpg. For the alt, I don't know, we'll just give her a name. We'll say Samantha. And then under the image is the testimonial, so it'll be a paragraph, and let's do lorem 40. So that's one testimonial, and I'm going to give the div here also a class of BG primary, which will give it that color, that background color. And then we can just copy this whole div, the whole testimonial, and go on to the next down here and just change the image to person 2. And we'll change the name. Are they both female? Yeah, so we'll just change the name to, I don't know, Jen. So let's save and let's take a look. Okay, so it doesn't look too good. So let's go ahead and add some CSS. So right below where we did the about stuff, let's do ID testimonials, and I want the height to be 600 pixels, and let's give it a background image of, let's do URL. It's going to be outside of the CSS folder into the images folder, and then we want test BG. Okay, we don't want it to repeat. We'll do center /cover. We want the whole image to show. And then let's do a padding top of 40 pixels just to push the heading and all this stuff down right here. All right, so this is the testimonials 600 pixels area, and as you can see, everything is busting out, and it's because of the size of the images. So I'm gonna grab those images. So let's say testimonial, and then each one of those testimonials has a class of testimonial, and then I'm going to grab onto the image, and I'm going to give it let's do a width of 100 pixels and save. Wait a minute. Oh, this should be testimonials. Okay, so now that the images are smaller, it doesn't bust out of its container anymore. So let's see, let's do this. Let's start from here and go down. So this H2, it's an H2, I believe. say testimonials dot. We want to target the H2, and we're going to set the color to white, and let's align it to the center. So text align center, and let's do padding bottom 40 pixels. Why isn't that? Or oh, you see how I put this testimonial? This H2 is not within either of these divs, and these divs have the class of testimonial, so this is wrong. We just want that. There we go. Okay, so let's see. So for the testimonial div, I want to add some styles for that. So I'm going to copy this, because that one's for the image. This is for the actual div. I'm going to set some padding. Let's do 20 pixels. Let's do some margin bottom just to push them down. And if we added more testimonials with a div with the class of testimonial, this would apply to those as well. So let's see, margin bottom 40 pixels. Let's do over. Actually, I'll do that after. Let's save that. And then I want the image to float to the left. Okay, and we don't have to make the text float to the right. It'll automatically push the text over. So in the image, let's say float left and save. Okay, so now the images float to the left, and it's right up against the edge though, so I'm going to add some margin right to the image to push the text over. So margin right, let's do 20 pixels, push the text over. Let's also make the image rounded, so we'll add a border radius of 50%. And there we go, that looks pretty good. Let's see, for the testimonial itself, let's do a little bit of a rounded corner here. So the testimonial class, I'll do border dash radius, let's do 5 pixels. So it has a little bit of a rounded corner. And then I want it to be a little bit see-through. So in CSS we have a property called opacity, where we can make the element opaque, so basically transparent. We can add a value from 0 to 1, where 1 is what it is now, not see-through at all, and 0 is completely transparent. So basically, the higher, the less transparent. So I want to do 0.9 because I want it to be barely transparent. So right here, for our testimonial div, let's do opacity 0.9 and save, and you can see you can barely see through it. If I do 0.5 and save, now you can really see through it. But the problem here is when you add opacity to a div like this, it also makes everything within it opaque. So even the text we can't really read, the image we can see through, and that's not really what we want. Even if we wanted the background to be really see-through like this, really transparent, and we wanted the text to be really readable, we would have to do something different. We'd have to add another element and then make just the background see-through. So basically we'd have to add an overlay, and I'm going to show you how to do that later on, not right now. If you want it to be just a little bit see-through, then you could add it to the whole div like we are now, because it's such a small amount that the text is still readable, the image, you can still see the image, but at the same time it's still a little opaque. Okay, so I'll show you how to do an overlay later on. So I think that's it. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Let's see, let's compare it with that. Yeah, so that's good. Wait, why is it? Did I miss some padding? I think I did. Let's see. Pad testimony. Oh, I had, you know what? I had 100 pixels padding on the top. There we go. Okay. So that's our about page. I mean, there's not a ton of content, but I think it looks pretty good. I think the home page looks pretty good, so especially if this is your first website. In the next video, we're going to start on the contact page, which just has a form. We have some icons, and that should be it. All right, so I'll see you in the next one.
Living life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days. Fuck me, I'm looking in the mirror, so foggy, but I've never seen clearer.